Hello guys and gals, and welcome. So Diablo 14 put out a video the other day, I think it was yesterday, while I was not feeling well. And it's called Diablo 4 Inside the Game, The World of Sanctuary. And I'd like to go over it real quick. Let's watch it together, and then let me give my thoughts on it.
Sanctuary is the world in which the story of Diablo takes place, and it's the battleground for the souls of humanity and the fight between angels and demons.
Sanctuary is a vast world, and there'll always be something new in every area, like hordes of enemies, safe haven towns, resources to gather, events, quests, and more.
We wanted to bring Diablo 4 artistically more back towards like Diablo 2, the much darker style. It's very macabre.
The artists and designers have had so much fun working on it, and it's just been a joy to create for us.
How would the people of Sanctuary show their world? What kinds of art would they use to describe the world? One of the things we really wanted to do was make the game feel like a painting.
Everything was built by a wonderful group of people who love Diablo as much as you do.
We have 5 unique zones.
Each of the regions has its own kind of flavor and ambient life.
We take a lot of influence from what our concept artists give us, and I know they take a lot of influence from real life.
There's Kyrgyzstan, which is the sort of desert.
It's amazing with its sweeping sand dunes.
Skazglen, which is inspired by Scotland. Fractured Peaks is inspired by the Carpathian Mountains.
The Dry Steppes is sort of our mountainous desert region, and Hawazar is the swampy region of the south. Whether you're on a mount or on foot, it's a joy to go from one region to the next. Also, the region transitions are really beautiful and stunning to see.
Making sure that it felt sort of geologically true was really important. If you walk from Fractured Peaks into Hawazar, you'll cross all of these waterfalls caused by snowmelt. So you can actually see the snow melting in Fractured Peaks through waterfalls, entering into Hawazar and entering the large basin that fills Hawazar with all of the swamp water.
We have all the different environments in the overworld, and we tried to make sure there was some parity with those in the dungeons. We have dungeons that are flooded, and there's like moss everywhere. It very much fits in with that Skazglen environment. Kyrgyzstan is all desert, so we have dungeons filled with sand. All the dungeons are particularly placed to make sure that they feel like this is a thing that could be in this part of the world. It fits here, it belongs here.
We definitely redesigned some of the monsters. For example, the Fallen family has gone through a major redesign to make them feel more grim, a little scarier, a little darker, to match the tone of Diablo 4.
Monster families are a way to describe the group of monsters that create a combat experience. So a lot of times there'll be brutes and swarmers, melee or casters, and that's the term that we use to sum up the vampires or the drowned or the undead.
And all of them have unique abilities, but they all synchronize together. They bolster each other and improve how they work on the battlefield so that every time you fight a pack of, let's say, goatmen, it's always different.
We wanted to make sure that the monster families all felt like they fit in their environments, and so our creature team did a really good job of making these different versions of them that have adapted to their environment. There's snowy goatmen and Fractured Peaks in some of the colder areas versus lightning goatmen around Dry Steppes and kind of the more arid areas. Hawazar has a lot of poison spiders.
Each of the regions has its own kind of flavor, and it's pretty exciting to discover.
We have some really cool new snake men, the Nangari. We've seen snake men in Diablo before, but these guys are just really twisted amalgamations of multiple snake heads, even human body parts. We have skeletons, we have undead, we have ghosts. All the things that you would expect to find from a Diablo game.
Spiders have been around in Diablo forever, but the spider host was a cool new twist.
It's a giant spider that attaches to a corpse and then puppets it at you, and when you kill it, it explodes with tons of baby spiders, and then those little spiders come after you, and I feel slightly guilty about traumatizing a lot of people with it.
We also have wildlife, deer, snakes, bugs, dogs. You can pet the dogs, by the way.
So many people ask to pet the dog. It was actually a lot of hard work to figure out how to pet that dang dog. You have so many activities that you might run into. It could be a stronghold, it could be side quests. You might have key dungeons to do. There could be bounties to pick up. You might encounter a world boss. You might encounter an invasion event of some kind.
We have much longer sort of narrative-heavy side quests, and we have some shorter side quests, so you never feel like you're always doing the same thing. The pacing is always a little bit different. One of the things that I really loved about our announcement was the By 3 They Come cinematic. I was able to build a quest where you actually get to go to those places. You get to go to the town. You get to go inside the chapel. And I work with some incredible dungeon designers to build the dungeon from the cinematic. You're gonna get to go across the bridge that you saw to the actual room where Lilith was summoned. I don't want to spoil too much, but I'm super excited to have players see it.
Sometimes it's kind of nice to just walk places, because that's a lot of the times when you see these little events.
You might find a demonic altar that you need to feed your blood to summon demons to then defeat for all of their loot. You might find a ghost child who's trying to find the remains of their parents, and you have to protect them. We have strongholds, which are a sort of large area that you can enter, and it has its own story, its own setup, its own sort of art that sort of tells a very specific story about this location, and those stay unlocked permanently once you've beaten back the darkness.
We did a lot of figuring out the balance between like how much space do we need for players to play through these dungeons versus how much space do we need to make them look cool. My favorite is this one called Endless Gates. It's got these teleporters, and these teleporters actually take you to other dungeons. So you'll end up in a cave, a crypt, or one of the ancients. And every time you go in, it's designed to change.
And there's dozens of villages and towns that you will run into.
The cities and towns are designed to be hubs. They're havens. They're places where you can find other players. They're good places to do all of your usual inventory management.
Each region has its main city that you can get lots of side quests and lots of activities.
We've really crafted the world to feel like there's always something just around the corner to find. In Diablo IV, you actually get to walk Sanctuary.
It's a massive place that you can seamlessly explore with no loading in between zones, which is something brand new.
It's a very immersive experience.
What I love about it is that you can go in a direction and you might be searching for a particular quest or an item, and you'll come across a stronghold that you haven't explored before. You'll come across dungeons that have legendary affixes, or you might discover a side quest that you didn't even know about that fills in some bit of lore that you actually were interested in. There's any number of things that can happen along the road to your destination, and that's what I love about having this fast space.
There are tons of different types of events in the world. It's been created to feel full of things to encounter, full of secrets to discover, full of characters to interact with, full of stories to find. We have these altars to Lilith that if you can find them, they will give you a permanent buff to all of your characters across the game. There are tons of them hidden everywhere. We also have these massive world bosses that are so big the camera actually has to pull out even further, and you're gonna have an opportunity to fight these bosses with your friends or with strangers to take down these huge world bosses.
And the team has done just an incredible job making Sanctuary a world worth exploring and a world worth investing yourself in.
All right, so there's a lot of stuff in here to look at, and we can definitely go over some of this. First off, being able to pet a dog is very important. I'm glad that they added the dog petting in, because whenever you come across a little kitty or a little dog, you want to pet the dog. Like you want to pet a dog. Yeah, give the dog those scratches behind his ear, maybe a little under the chin. You gotta make it work. Some interesting little tidbits in here. Some of them were things like I saw a couple monsters in here which resembled what do I want to call them? Like they looked like Mephisto. It looks like they had some serious like Mephisto vibes on some of these monsters. Like this one right here kind of resembles Mephisto. Let's see if I can drag just a little bit. We're gonna mute this. I mean, you look at him, the way he moves and like how his hands are, like that monster looked a lot like Mephisto. And then later on, they had another monster. It was like a world boss that kind of looked like Mephisto too. And I was like, what the hell is that? It seemed like they had a couple world bosses in here for us to see, and they were just kind of like dropped. You didn't actually, specifically know what you were looking at. Like this is obviously one of the world bosses, and they told us this is a world boss. So like we don't need to be told about that one. And they talked about going to the dungeon where Lilith was summoned, which I thought was pretty cool. Where is that one world boss? You know what? Give me just a second. I'm going to pause it, see if I can find him, and I'll be right back. This isn't the world boss, but this is another one. Some sort of ghost, as you can see, it's got 6 arms and kind of like a little like goat head. Not quite the same as Mephisto, but definitely one of the interesting things. The snake boss looks kind of cool. I'm not really sure what to think about him. And I'm sure I can find him. Oh, here he is right here. This is him. He kind of reminds me of Mephisto. Like, I mean, look at him. He's got like 6 arms. He's mostly like bone. It doesn't even really seem like he has feet. That's another thing about Mephisto that kind of makes him Mephisto, is he kind of just floats there. And I don't know. It almost seems like a Mephisto-esque style monster. Look, he just kind of floats along. It definitely seems to be like a world boss of some kind. I mean, you can see him just like shooting off like massive beams of light. I mean, some of the stuff that they showed in here was really impressive, I gotta admit. I really like some of the art style directions that they're going with. In general, we got a couple confirmations that they were, in fact, trying to like mimic the style of Diablo 2. She even said it. She said we're trying to mimic the darker art style of Diablo 2, which is pretty, pretty standard fanfare these days. They're kind of like shying away from the whole Diablo 3 art style. Some of these landscapes, though, are pretty cool. I'm liking these, like the dark vibe and the statues. And I'm not sure if it's just like the YouTube compression or like what's going on, but everything kind of has like a gray haze over it, like a fog or something. And I'm not sure if that's deliberate, but it does seem a little kind of meh. They might want to tone down the fog a little bit. Everything doesn't need a gray fog over top of it. It's like the whole world of Sanctuary has like this gray fog over it. And it's not just the sunglasses. I mean, the team seems pretty excited. I actually kind of like the idea of these little side quests and whatnot. At the end here, they kind of dropped a little bombshell on us, which was these Lilith statues, and they're talking about like the Lilith statues being like a permanent buff for your characters, which I don't necessarily mind. Don't get me wrong. I actually kind of like the idea of exploration leading you to permanent buffs because people love permanent buffs. Anything that is a permanent buff will probably cause people to seek out and upgrade their character. You know, like most end game characters, once they've gotten their character leveled up and they're geared out and everything, they've got all their, 4 skill quests from each difficulty. They got their resistance quest from each difficulty. You know, they go get their stat points from each difficulty, their potion of HP from each difficulty in Diablo 2. And, it's like these little quests that give you these permanent buffs are very important, and people go do them. So having these little statues all over the place is actually kind of cool. I'm not exactly sure how many there are, but then we got to look at another world boss right here. That's the same one they've showed us several times, but this one is a new one as well. Obviously a world boss. Looks like he has a pretty cool jumping attack here. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's 8 players currently fighting this guy. Sorry, I was going like frame by frame because we don't really get much view of the guy. Why's he got a big red spike coming out of his anus? Y'all see this? He's got a big red spike coming out of his anus hole. This guy's been showed several times, and this guy can actually open up a portal and like teleport and stuff. It's kind of cool. And there's another small little tidbit. Looks like he's a poison damage character. I mean, I think it's pretty obvious by all the poison puddles that he's got all over the place. So it looks like you're probably going to need a little bit of poison resistance. One thing I know about these world bosses from MMOs and other games is that they can very often be unkillable if the people around you aren't following the proper procedures to kill them. Like, for instance, there was a world boss that had like a life leech thing. And like if you stood within his attack when he leeched, he could just regenerate all his life back and nobody could ever kill him. So if you didn't actually like run away during that sequence, you would just be giving the boss HP. And the more people that were around him and the more idiots that weren't following the proper procedure, the longer the fight would last. And oh man, some of those were terrible. So it looks like we have a a developer talk coming up on the 28th, by the way. So if you guys haven't seen, let's see here, on Tuesday next week, there is going to be a dev talk. The dev talk is supposed to, like, I think, puff up the beta, which is coming, which they advertise the beta right here at the end of the video. I've already done like a little video on that, but it's March 17th to the 19th if you've pre-ordered, and then March 24th to the 26th if you haven't pre-ordered and you just want to hop in the open beta. Apparently this is just going to be Fractured Peaks, and it's going to be up till level 25. And as far as I know, no progress in the beta will not carry over to the live game. I'm actually kind of excited to get my hands finally on the game so that I can actually play it and test around with it, because it does look like they're going in the right direction. You know, I'm still skeptical because Diablo 3 was terrible, but I'm cautiously optimistic. Anyway, as always, I do appreciate you guys and gals joining me for stuff like this. I just wanted to check out this doodad and kind of like analyze what they're showing us and telling us. And as always, thanks for watching, and keep watching.